Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Biblical Synopsis Podcast, where we explain Scripture, defend faith, and restore lives. I am your host, James Schroeder. Today's episode, I was able to sit down with my brother-in-law, Trenton Winkler. He is passionate about children's ministry, discipleship, and he recently came back from ministering in Honduras for 2 years. This has given him a unique perspective on work and Christian ministry and full-time ministry, and also now that he's back home, he is serving what we would say part-time or just in his church. Him and I sit down to discuss work ethic, and how the Christian should act in his workplace and in ministry. I hope you enjoy. Trenton, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Your name is Trenton Winkler. Currently, you work at NKOL. What's that company?
NKOL it stands for Northern Kentucky Online. We are an MSP or managed service provider that services over 500 companies in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area with their IT needs and services, from networking to fixing their computers, mainly on the Microsoft front and working with them with their software needs and really just servicing them in however they might need. And this can be very different.
Like all around IT help.
All around IT help. We do police departments, pediatrics offices, law firms, small mom and pop shops. So a large variety in there. But yeah, we do pretty much whatever they're needing IT-wise.
That's awesome. And then you received a Bachelor's of Science in Information Technology from Pensacola Christian College.
Yes.
And you recently spent 2 years in Honduras in between college and this job that you have right now. So I think that's going to be very applicable to this discussion about work and the difference, we could say, the distinction between full-time Christian ministry, which is what you did for 2 years, and now you're working at what we would call maybe secular workplace or normal everyday workplace, and then also doing ministry at your church and so on and so forth. First, let's start with, you mentioned that Genesis 1:28 was your foundation for Christian work and ministry. Yeah. How does that, because that's the creation mandate about the idea of be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. How does that play into work?
Yeah. So I had heard it a while back and it changed how I viewed things. We know of the Great Commission that our Lord gave at the end of Matthew and Mark. But then I heard it probably a few years ago of Genesis 1:28 being the first commission that God gave us. That it's mainly about, having dominion over the fish of the sea, fowl of the air, multiply, replenish the earth. And so it might be a little bit extrapolated out in a sense because we're not farming and tilling the ground as much nowadays.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that the economy in its evolved state that we're not accomplishing that. And so we are making a better world. In my case, that is making a better IT world, giving people an amazing IT experience. And so it looks maybe a little bit different than what Adam did in the Garden of Eden, but is still very much, we are working, we're getting stuff accomplished to advance even business goals. And I think that all can be very much tied together in that original mandate that God gave us.
That would all ultimately be what God designed for man to do in the garden. One of the definitions I've heard was Adam and Eve were to make the rest of the world like Eden.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right,
yeah.
Eden was this perfect garden, and they were supposed to spread that and push that.
I think you can work off of a chaos versus order type of deal, where we are adding order to the lives of our clients, because I can promise you they are anything but orderly.
Right.
And so we're adding order to the chaos of computing machines.
And people, I think Christians don't spiritualize things at all. And instead of going like, no, someone working at an IT company is actually doing the creation mandate, is actually doing this commission by subduing the earth, we could say, subduing the earth, making it usable, making it orderly.
One thing about my job, and I absolutely love it, is the owners of it are elders at a church actually nearby here. Everyone there goes to church. So when we are doing IT services for companies, the whole goal is we're doing it out of Christ-like love, and that has to show. I had an attorney cussing and yelling at me on the phone over this last week as I was trying to make sure he wasn't getting hacked. And I had to keep on working through that. At first, it honestly rattled me a little bit hearing this attorney yelling and screaming, but we had to get this thing to happen. And so my aim just had to be, show Christ-like love in this. And so that's one thing I love about my job. We start off the week and we're going around different prayer requests or what's happening in our lives. We're praying about that before we have any meal together. We're praying for it. And so there is the establishing the mandate. And where I'm blessed in is the fact that I just get to do it with a bunch of other Christians.
Right. So you have an environment that actually promotes that idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
So akin to that, I would consider, even though you might be in the minority where your workplace is very promotive of
Yeah.
Christianity.
Yeah.
What does it look like to work in the world but not be of the world?
Mhm.
So we have this idea, especially in John 17 and in Corinthians later with Paul, where he's saying you need to be separate from the world. Later, James is going to say friendship with the world is enmity with God. How does a Christian who is in a secular, we would say secular, they're not working under a church leadership, they're not working in a specifically dedicated Christian ministry. How does somebody work in the world but not of the world?
Yeah. I think in every single way, I think I heard it a while back. It was with a different topic of a preacher talking about. It's like, in a lot of ways, we're going to act like the world. I mean, we're going to do the work in a sense of the world. But just because something is secular doesn't mean that it's not sacred as well. And, I mean, one thing I bring up a lot is the Protestant work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's recognizing that, one, the work that we're doing, even if that's whether that's being a pastor or an IT guy like myself, or you're a doctor or you're a lineman doing electrical work, you're working at a factory, anything like this, is that the work itself, for one, is the work itself is sacred. Just the fact that I'm working and I'm providing order, I'm handling that
Because
mandate that
God
He gave.
has commanded work.
Yes.
God
Yeah.
has designed man to work. So
Correct. Without it, we really
Mhm.
will find ourselves quite purposeless very quickly.
Right.
The second thing is, and this is where the New Testament comes into play, and specifically all the passages that you mentioned, John 17, 1 Corinthians, James, is that when we are working, one, we should be the best worker that there is at whatever place that we're working at. We should be attempting to grow and build ourselves. I mean, my job requires so much learning and so much. So we're already going to be the best
Mhm.
just in the fact that we're working and we have something worthwhile. Paul says this so well in Colossians. I think he says it in a couple other places.
Mhm.
But it's like we're not working for man, we're
Right.
working for God. And that does start making a difference. And it shows up very quickly when we're working. If, oh, wait, like a boss can be coming in and be saying, hey, you need to accomplish XYZ. And we're saying, okay, what did Jesus say about that? He said, if they ask you to go a mile, you go a second mile. And so
Right.
there's going to be a lot of things that a boss asks. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
And
I'm gonna
that
do
was
it.
usually commanded by Romans who were
Correct.
who Jews
Who
did
were
not,
awful.
right, who
Yeah.
were awful and who were not always very kind to the people they were commanding to.
Yeah.
And even as Christians in a workplace that not like yours, that would actually not promote Christianity and would actually push back against that. That's a good thing to remember, where Jesus is
Yes.
talking to Jews under Roman occupation and says, if someone commands you to walk a mile, walk with him twain or two. Even if we're under even hard leadership or hard bosses, as a Christian,
hmm
we should still improve upon our work.
Yeah, I was just looking up the passage in Colossians, Colossians 3:22. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh. Okay, so we're supposed to do as they're already saying.
Right.
But the next line, not with eye service
Mhm.
as men pleasers. Okay, that's a very different thing, because most of the time you get to work and it's like, okay, I'm going to accomplish these things so that my boss sees it. I'm going to jack up my numbers. I could do this with billable time. And it's like, I'm going to write in all this stuff and it's like, look what I accomplished. Or if someone was helping me along with it, forgetting what they
Right.
added, and then
Mhm.
just it's like, look what I
But-
did. And that's where he finishes up the passage, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. It's like, yes, we are obeying our masters or our bosses in this case, but we're doing it for the purpose of God. There's a singleness of it. It's like, I'm still after Him. So if I'm going to be in the world, but not of the world, I'm going to be fully involved in my job, but I'm going to be doing it for a greater purpose. And I'm
Mhm.
keeping that in mind at all times. And I think just the last thing with sort of finishing up that whole thought is, it's like, okay, we're doing the best, and we're going to be the best because we're doing it for a higher calling. And I think that's sort of the greatest way to maybe answer your question is we are doing it for a higher calling. But that also means that we're not engaging with the world in the way that they do
Right.
things. We're not, when again, that attorney was cussing over the phone at me for hours, and I worked with him a lot this last week. It wasn't just responding back with the same amount of animosity and the same amount of like, dude, you messed up your computer. You got all this.
Or you
There's
could
a data
even
breach, and
be
I could be
right.
yelling.
You could be tempted to just do status quo. It's very easy if somebody mistreats you, especially in a service work environment, even someplace like a fast food or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's very easy if somebody mistreats you to go, okay, then you're just getting status quo at this point. But as a Christian, we're not supposed to change that. We're supposed to still be
Correct.
honoring God in such a way that we are still going to give the best service that we can and not change our service based on how we're treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and answering one of your questions, you mentioned Pastor Redlin, and I remember a Pastor Redlin quote right now where he said it was something to the effect of everybody wants to be a servant until you feel like one. Right. Everybody wants to be a servant until you're treated like one. And I think Christians need to be very careful about forgetting that we are serving God rather than men. And that even when we're treated like a servant or a slave, we don't change our service.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And that would definitely, I think someone of the world would definitely change their service based on what they get.
Yeah.
And based on what they get for pleasing men's eyes or for eye service.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good thought with it. I think one of the greatest things that will end up coming out when God is our focus, when following after the gospel is our goal, then I think one of the first things that people will see more than any other trait is humility.
Correct. I agree.
I think that'll be the first thing that comes out. And so, okay,
that comes out in your work.
Yeah, they're berating me. Okay, I mean, this last week, it was somewhat ignoring at least all the ranting and stuff and trying to sift through, okay, is he saying anything that's actually useful and worthwhile to be listening to here? But when he did actually, hey, I actually do need to get this fixed, it's like, okay, now we can work on that. Now we can get things done. And just, I think that courage also gets shown so fast. We sometimes will think it's like, okay, Christianity, it's being Jesus meek and mild, and we're going to just be blown over with everything. It's like, no, we're going to end up showing more courage than any other person ever will. We'll take on the just headstrong and ruthless world in a way that no one else can be able to pull off.
Stepping away from that just a little bit, we've talked a lot about your current place of work and the we could call it secular workplace. What do you mean? What do you think this concept of full-time, or we would call vocational Christian ministry is?
We're all called to something different. And for some of us, that might be working in IT, that might be being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. That could also mean being a pastor. I think anytime that a job is something, because all of them we're going to serve to our fullest. Doesn't matter whether you're what we would consider full-time or vocational ministry, or whether you are a layman in the church and you're working any job that we get, we are to be working in the same exact fashion of the full Christ-like,
the same
character,
manner.
the same gospel.
Yeah.
Yes, all of that ends up becoming the same. So nothing's different in there. We're still serving, we're still faithful. Nothing changes. But it's whether that work is something that is directly compensated, because the work that I do at NKOL is, yes, I'm going to be living out Christ as to the best of my ability there. I'm still going to be living out that gospel. I'm still going to be doing all the same things as I would be in full-time ministry, if we want to use that word. But I'm getting compensated for that specific work that I'm doing, versus someone like a pastor or a missionary is not directly compensated for the work specifically that they're doing. A pastor, when he goes and visits the hospital, is not being paid to go do that. A missionary that's going off, when I was in Honduras, I was never directly paid by the Hondurans or by the missionaries that were down there. I was paid by a church that was not even directly being benefited, if you want to use that, benefited by the work that I was doing. And I was very graciously given a lot because of what I was doing down there, but it wasn't directly from
Right.
the people
It's
that I was
not like
ministering
a
to.
it's not like a clock in, clock out type of job.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
No, I worked way
Right, right,
because of that.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
so
is that the main would you say that the primary difference I'm trying not to use the term secular and sacred
mhm,
because I think that they're not good definitions because somebody who, as you said, is working in IT, someone who's working a job in the world is still doing something sacred. They're still doing their calling,
yeah.
which is a sacred calling.
But you could say sacred versus secular in the fact that I'm in a secular workplace
Okay.
accomplishing this versus a church would be a sacred
A sacred
place.
place. Okay.
Yeah, might be a good way.
I want to read a passage I think that speaks to this. It's written by Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I'll just read a couple verses. He actually talks about this specifically. He says, "For it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain." Is it the ox that God is concerned about? It's a rhetorical question.
Mhm.
He answers it and says, no, he's talking about people. Do you not know that those who minister the holy things eat of the holy things of the temple? He's talking about the Levites who are ministering in the temple, and they get to take a part of the sacrifice. So they didn't have money, legal tender. They had you get a cow and I get some grain, and you get a sheep and I get whatever your crop is.
Mhm.
And so when Paul is talking about payment, he's talking about food, like literal animals, literal meat
Mhm.
given to them so that they can eat that day. And those who serve at the altar partake of the offerings of the altar. Even so in the same way that the Levites got to partake of the offerings, even so the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel. Why do you think that Paul encourages, as you said, this type of compensation, that a pastor is not compensated the same way that a layman working at a secular workplace is?
I mean, when the main part of the person's job is to be feeding spiritual, because to straight up say that and a person in IT is doing the same kind of work as a pastor is just not true. And so we are still working to the same degree and we are serving the Lord. That is the aim of it. But my main aim when doing the IT is not to be sharing the gospel and to articulating out that gospel and counseling. Those things might come up in there, but that's not the main aim of
Would you
it.
say that you're meeting physical needs?
I
And
would say that's the primary.
and as somebody in pastoral is primarily
Mhm.
focused, he might meet physical needs in the process,
Yes.
but he's primarily focused on spiritual
Yeah, I
needs.
mean, we can think of Acts 6 when they
Mhm.
call out the men. I mean, the point was to pull away some of the, I don't know what you might want to call it, the physical needs that the
Right,
church was providing.
right, dealing with the finances and
The
ministering to the
finances,
widows.
ministering to widows,
And the
all of that.
apostles are like, "We have to be dedicated to
We
the
need to be
word."
prayer
Right,
and we need to
prayer.
be studying.
Yeah, mhm,
We need to be looking at this so that way that they can minister in a spiritual way to the congregation. And that was the purpose of those men in Acts
mhm,
6. So, and then in some way, the apostles then had to be taken care of so that they could focus. Because I think you would end up pulling away from a pastor being able to feed us spiritually if we're like, oh, yeah, you also have to have a full
mhm,
other quote unquote secular job as well. So it allows him, if we're paying him, to accomplish the work that God has for him much more effectively than if he had to then, I still have to provide for my family. I still have to feed my
right.
kids. It's so much better.
How do you
There.
think bivocational pastors, because that's very much, in rural areas, that's very much a thing,
Yes. Yeah.
bivocational pastorate. How do you think, someone in that position, in that place, should balance their spiritual ministering to their church and then their physical working for on behalf of their family?
That's a hard one. God has called that person to be a pastor, and they're doing such an amazing work. I've known plenty that are like that.
Mhm,
Um, and they're doing such an amazing job in the pastorate. It gets challenging. I would say that your primary ministry is still to your family. And
mhm,
because of that, you have to provide for them physically. And I think the same can be true, I would say, about a layman such as myself. Of it's like I can be very involved in ministry. I
mhm,
could be I mean, the list can go on and on. This morning it was substitute teaching in a Sunday school.
right,
And I could keep on bringing in tons of new ministries and stuff like that, but if I felt like it was hurting my family, it's going to be pulling off of there.
Right.
And with bivocational ministry, man, that's hard because it's like you have such a weight for people, and I have so much respect for them. It's
Mhm.
like you also have your family. And I
Right.
think that uh, I truly believe that your primary responsibility is to your family over that ministry, and so you have to be able to provide. And if there's not the means in the church or in the ministry to be able to pay for what you're doing, then I mean, you just have to pick up the load, and you
Right.
have to be able to do
Mhm.
that. That's not the preferable way. That's not the way
Yeah,
that
it's
Paul
not. Yeah.
laid out. It's not the way the Bible or Moses laid out at all.
Mhm.
But there's times where you are required. I will say, and this is a very maybe harsh view of it, is that I think there have, and this is with my time in Honduras,
Mhm.
I saw people living with significantly less,
Right.
significantly less. And I think one of the biggest issues in the United States in particular is not an income issue. I think that there is very much an expectations issue. And sometimes when it's not so much, okay, am I going to be able to provide the rice and beans that my family needs to
Right.
survive?
Mhm.
But are we going to be able to go out to eat enough? Are we going to be able to have enough tech or the newest car and stuff like that? And I'm not
Mhm.
saying this is across the board. I'm not saying this is everyone, but I also have seen people in ministry even that becomes such a primary.
Mhm.
And this is not the case across everyone. And just because a pastor has a nicer thing does not mean that he's not serving. That's very much not what I'm trying to
Right.
say here. But I think we have to also check when you are looking at, okay, how do I provide for my family? Do I need to go bivocational? Take a serious look at that, but make sure that the expectations for what life should be are not incorrect.
Or unreasonable
Unreasonable is a better word for
unreasonable
that.
considering the call.
Correct.
Because there is, I think I do agree with you, especially with this whole idea of culturally right now with the Iran war and the fluctuation in gas prices and the fluctuation in goods and services
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Americans are, I think, need to, before jumping to an assumption and saying something needs to be done, I need more money. Maybe
Mhm.
the pause should go, what am I expecting? What are my
Yeah.
expected needs and wants, and am I being reasonable
Mhm.
considering the circumstances in which I live, work, and yeah. I would agree. Going down to the Dominican Republic, as my dad does part-time missions there, they are some of the happiest people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they are some of the happiest people, and they have, compared to me, nothing.
Mhm.
Compared to
Oh,
what I have in
yeah.
America, and sometimes I have a disgruntled day because, like you said, my iPhone's not working or
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
laptop's not working.
Mhm.
They're gonna have a disgruntled day if it rains and they can't get to their crops.
Yeah.
Like, that's their disgruntled day,
Mhm.
and I think I agree with you. I think taking a step back and going, "What am I expecting from this provision that God's
Yeah.
giving me through a job?"
There was a man, he was one of my closest friends in Honduras. He had me over for dinner right before I left to come back to the States, and he was just telling me, he's like, "I could pick up another job," but he's like, "I'm just so happy because I get to spend so much time with my family now."
Mm,
And I'm like, "You're poor." And he has so little, in comparison, and yet he was just so happy that he could spend so much time with his family and that he could serve in church, and I had to force money in his hand when he cut my hair
mm,
because he always just wanted to do it for free.
right.
But he wanted his family first. He wanted to be ministering after that. He drove one of the buses. He did so much at church down there. And he's like, I could pick up another job, but then it pulled me away from what is the highest priority. And I'm like, we just have our priorities so out of whack in the
Mhm.
States many times. I think that the American church does not recognize how much we're influenced by the culture, and then just how blessed we are in the States.
Right, and we have to be careful not. I think a good example would be we have to wash our feet. We've been out in the world all,
Yeah.
we're working, we're out in the world, we're interacting with the philosophies and the thoughts and the attitudes of everyday
Mhm.
people who may be unregenerate or regenerate. And then we have to come back either to church or in our daily devotions and wash
Yeah.
our feet in the sense of be renewed to look at the world like we're supposed to.
Yeah, that's a really good addition. I would say that that actually plays really well with the question that you were asking earlier of what does it mean to be in the world and not of the world.
Right.
There are those things of, okay, we're working for a different cause. But man, we gotta really regenerate ourselves often. We have to
Right.
be in the Word daily. We have to be praying. We have to be at church every single time we possibly can be. Not so that we can serve, and yes, we do need to be outputting, and we need to be doing that at church, but so that we can receive back. Because man, we need it when we're
Right.
going out into the world.
If we're
We're
gonna
tackling.
pour out, we need to be
Yes.
poured back into.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
This might bring us into our next point as well, the idea of there are these obstacles within vocational and bivocational Christian ministry. What do you think, particularly for young men, what is the greatest hindrance to them stepping either them stepping into the calling that God has on their life for full-time Christian service,
Mhm.
or just as a father, as a husband or as a
Yeah.
father or as a young man, being involved in their church or being involved in some sort of ministry besides the work that they do? What is that? What do you think the greatest hindrance to that is?
Thinking any of it will be easy.
Mhm.
It's you do not go towards a pastorate. Do not go towards work
Is it the
towards.
idea that they think it's easy, they get into it, and they they leave it because it was hard?
They can leave it,
Mm.
yeah, or they start yeah, I think the expectations can just be off, or they choose God's calling for their life based off of, "And this will be easy." I think that I can't tell you how many I've seen. Some of them are absolutely amazing, absolutely loved it. They were some of the greatest men that I knew at college, or they were the worst. It was a lot of times the ministerial
Mhm.
men,
Right.
because you had some that were absolutely phenomenal and they just worked, and you could tell they had a spirit for ministry. And it was just so amazing being around them. And then I met so many, I'm like, I would not want you at all being my pastor or my children's pastor or anything
Mhm.
like that, because honestly, you just don't have the same work ethic.
Right.
And, but the same can be true for laymen. It's like, oh, I want to stay out of ministry because ministry is hard. So therefore, I'm going to go be an electrician. I'm going
Mhm.
to go be an engineer. I'm going to go be a businessman, an accountant, or something like that because ministry is hard. It's
Right.
like you're missing the point. We're all going to be working hard,
Mhm.
and we're all going to be ministering hard.
Right.
And so wherever you're at, I mean, as a layman, it is working yourself to death at the job because man, we've been called to it.
Mhm.
But then when we clock out of there, one, it's a lot of work with a family. I'm about
Right.
to be married in a couple months, and it takes a lot of work there, but, I mean, in the church, being so involved in there. But then on vocational front is yeah, like, you get in there not because you're escaping work. Ooh, you
No.
work at a church
Yeah,
for
no.
long enough, I promise you, you will realize that most of it will not be preaching from a pulpit.
Correct.
Most of it won't even be called quote unquote spiritual work. Most of it's
Right.
going to be washing, building. We're going to be fixing up the vehicles. When I was in Honduras, man, we were always working on those vehicles.
Mhm.
I'm setting up chairs all the
You're
time.
doing all this physical
It
labor
is a
so that the spiritual labor can be done.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. The greatest
Yeah.
hindrance, I think, is just not understanding. There's a lot of work, no matter
Mhm.
if you're a vocational ministry or you're a layman or you're in this bivocational state. It's going to be tough
Right.
anyway, but that's what makes it worthwhile
Mhm.
too. And just the work is there's a sense of purpose in that. And if you can recognize that, I think you'll have a much easier life when you can just get that straight of it's not going to be easy.
Yeah,
Praise. Yeah.
accepting the truth of the reality of the matter that
Yeah.
ministry is going to be
Mhm.
is going to be hard work.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're getting married soon.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
I'm very excited.
I'm sure.
Very
Um,
excited.
how would you personally? I know that you have a love and a care, especially for Bible clubs and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
ministering. How would you? We don't want to be like Eli in the Bible,
Yeah. Yeah.
who is rebuked for not correcting his children, his two sons, and we don't want to be being Eli in the sense of our children are left to the wayside because we're so involved in ministry. So, how would you balance? I need to be ministering to people. I need to be discipling people. That's what I've been called to do by God. I need to be involved in my church, but I also have this other calling as a husband and as a father. I'm called to disciple, instruct, and care for my wife and children spiritually. How how would you find the balance for that?
I mean, in our lives, our job is to be with anyone that we interact with. The love of Christ comes out. We are disciple making at every single corner. And we do that most with the people that we're closest with. And I think our first people that we're quote unquote discipling, because we're discipling anyone that we're coming, any believer that we're coming across. But we should be doing it with the person we are closest to, and that would be my future wife. That would be they're the person that we will be closer than anyone else for the entire rest of our lives. My ministry should be pouring into her. Before I ever get to a Bible club, before I ever substitute teach in a Sunday school, I'm working in the youth group right now. There's a lot of other things that I'm talking with my pastors of where I'll be getting involved in, especially after marriage. And I want to be doing those, but before I get to any of that kind of thing, I need to make sure that the home front's taken care of. Why? Because it's close. God has given her to me before He gave me anyone else.
Right.
And so it's like my entire heart, one should be feeding myself with the Word of God and growing my relationship with Christ, but should be almost immediately redirected into nurturing and caring for her and developing her into the person that God wants her to be. And then immediately right after that, the children. And it should be, and then after that, ministry is never my ministry. It is now our ministry as a family, that we are now ministering out to them. And anytime that I go and I work in the youth group or I'm working with kids in some kind of way in the future, I am doing that so that my kids can see this ministry and be able to develop and be able to grow. Because if you never do ministry outside the home, your kids will, sheltered is very much the word I use to an extreme degree, where they will never then develop themselves to be good disciples of Christ. So if I want to be discipling my children, it should be by having them come out with me door to door, and we're going to be going and sharing the gospel.
Yeah, and they're gonna learn by watching.
Correct.
I like how you brought up the point that it's not my. I think that's the mistake some ministers make, is they make the ministry theirs and theirs alone, and they don't go, no, this is our family's. This is I and my wife's ministry together, because we're unified in this goal and this calling by God. And I think that's, maybe if more pastors did that, there would be less falling, there would be less misaligned priorities between family and ministry. And instead of going, Dad's going to leave the house and he's going to go out and he's going to do this ministry and then he'll come back. Instead, it's, no, Dad is an extension of our family, and he's going to go out and do this ministry on God's behest.
And then beyond that, of how would I minister more, I want to make sure I do well at this. I mean, this is something great for me on this one.
Same here.
Is like family altar. And making sure that's such a huge thing. It's like, I might be preaching a lot in my church later on down the road. I do a little bit right now, but maybe that's going to be even more consistent. I'm going to be teaching a lot. It's like, before I ever get to them, it should be, I'm teaching every single Christian man. I heard this years ago. Every single Christian man should know how to preach. You might not end up preaching behind the pulpit or in a Sunday school class or something, although hopefully that would be the case for every Christian man as well. It's like, you're going to be preaching to your family, to know how to open up the Bible and look through it and not pull out heresy from here, but actually know how to
exegete the word.
Actually exegete the word, and then be able to present that in a presentable and applicable way for a 3-year-old.
Right.
And I mean, and before that, for your wife. It's like, I need to be able to go through this, and we might work through devotions together of like, okay, what does this passage say?
Right.
And the times that Priscilla and I have had to do it, and we have not done it as much as I'd like to, but the times that we've had to be able to just take a psalm and work through it together, it's just been like, we're both so uplifted and we're so encouraged through just that. So it's our ministry. They come first, but then it's our ministry. And then, okay, what are we doing? What does that actually look like? Family altar, family devotions. And I want to make sure that that is a major part of.
And because of that consistency, the kids aren't confused. There's no dualism of what's happening at home and what's happening outside the home. Instead of, it's consistent, and this is exactly, this is what God has called us to do. And it happens at both places.
It happens at the home. It happens at church, because many times there's a misalignment there as well. It happens when we're outside the home. When Dad's out working, we can assume that he's being Christian. If we ever went to the office and visited, he is acting the same way there. There's a consistency across the board. So I would say consistency is a huge thing with that.
To end, what is one piece of advice you wish you had earlier?
Prioritize devotions. I think that with work and everything, just that time with God, there can be that lack of consistency. It's just like, look, we're setting aside this time, and it's like, this is God's. Just this morning in the message we heard, his last point was God can do something in a moment that we can't even accomplish in a lifetime.
Right.
And we can accomplish so much stuff, and we can try to push and really strive and do the best we possibly can, but it's like setting aside just that moment and saying, no, my life is yours. Do with it as you want. And that's just in every single day. Saying, God, I'm yours. Do with me what you want, so that I can do my work not as a man pleaser, but I'm doing it in singleness of heart as unto God. I should define every single part of my life, but I need to start in the morning with just that time for Him to pray, to seek out His will for me and His word, not just to study the Bible to become a better theologian, but to be a better son of God, that I'm just seeking after Him at His feet, trying to learn from Him, and making that more of a consistent thing earlier on in my life would, I think, make a huge difference even now. Yeah.
Good. Trenton, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much, James. I appreciate it.